Ariel Maloney, Bristol. I'm speaking tonight to the board, but also to fellow parents, Newfound community members, and most importantly, Bridgewater, Hebron, and Groton voters. I attended both of last week's meetings about HB 349, the school board's listening session on Monday, and the steering committee standing weekly meeting on Wednesday. I heard multiple perspectives about the proposed cooperative school district that would effectively secede from SAU4, as well as the option for a possible tuition agreement and the option that students from those three towns will no longer have a relationship with any Newfound school. Members of the steering committee spoke about multiple reasons for this bill, which to my understanding include concern about a possible future disproportionate tax formula, a history of 20 years of contentious relationships with various SAU administrators, some of whom are no longer here, and school board members, some residual frustration with last year's community conversations about curriculum and staffing, and ultimately a desire for increased town control of spending, curriculum, personnel, and politics. My children attend and will attend Bristol Elementary, so I cannot speak to what this potential divorce might feel like as a parent of BHVS students. But I am an English teacher at the high school, and as such have students from Bridgewater, Hebron, and Groton. My children's friends and teammates attend BHVS, and future classmates at the middle school would have included students of BHVS. I heard the steering committee speak about their desire to minimize disruptions to students' learning and teachers' instruction, but as an educator and parent, I know that this will be disruptive. Divorce often is, even under the most amicable circumstances. In my nearly 20-year career, I have worked with urban and rural school districts in multiple states, and my many years of teaching have taught me the importance of collaboration, of consensus. No matter how large the district or how small the school, rarely, if ever, will educators ever find 100% consensus. We will never all agree. What matters at the end of the day is that we find the path forward, we agree to abide by the consensus, and we put forth our best faith effort to work with that common ground, even if we don't fully agree, because that is what is best for our students and community. At the start of this school year, Newfound school and district leadership spoke to faculty and staff about the difference between fitting in and belonging. True belonging is making sure that all feel comfortable and that they have a seat at the table. Unfortunately, what I have heard is not that BHVS faculty, staff, parents, and community members are in consensus. It would appear quite the opposite. Some feel belonging in the Newfound district and some do not. Some welcome this change and some do not. And rather than engage willingly in the discomfort of finding common ground, this bill has proposed that Bridgewater, Hebron, and Groton just walk away from the table. There are still many questions and a seeming lack of transparency and answers for now. The steering committee held much of last week's meeting in non-public session. They explained last week that the vote in March 2024, which will decide if this is going to happen, is most likely to occur at each town's in-person budget or town meeting, which may or may not be well attended. I know that the board has a challenging decision before you tonight whether or not to enter into agreements with the steering committee. I do not feel qualified to suggest a vote one way or the other. But I hope that those here listening tonight or at home watching the live stream or watching this recording consider the repercussions of breaking up our Newfound community rather than working together collaboratively and constructively, because we are Newfound and we are stronger together. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Okay. Seeing none, I have 2 public comment email letters. Give me just a moment. Grab my computer so that it's bigger. Okay. To the Newfound Area School Board. I wanted to reach out to have my voice heard during public comments at this evening's meetings as I'm unable to attend. There are so many unknowns of House Bill 349 and questions wondering what will happen if Groton, Bridgewater, and Hebron do vote to leave SAU4. I am concerned about the lack of information that we currently have and how this puts undue stress on my staff. They are a truly amazing group of people and deserve to come to school, collaborate, and teach the children without fearing what is to come or why we cannot get answers. Our BHVS families are also looking for answers. You can help. I am asking that you please engage in conversations with the steering committee for House Bill 349 so that you can help to get accurate information out to everyone and show continued support of BHVS as part of the district. We are Newfound. Thank you for your consideration. Stacy Giles, Principal, Bridgewater Hebron Village School. Sorry. Next, old business, House Bill 349 work session. We had the work session last Monday. I know everybody said I know I've gotten some feedback from it. People in the community were very happy to be able to voice their opinions and be heard and listen. Yes, I can hear it as well.
Yeah, it's the microphone.
I don't know if it's a microphone or something else.
Can we turn it off while no one's using it?
It's that high pitch noise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it stopped. It keeps coming and going.
Okay.
Sorry. Discussion regarding, or, I mean, anybody have any ideas, requests, thoughts? Wow,
Well,
that's okay. I mean, the biggest thing we needed to kind of discuss today is going to be whether we want to enter into agreements or discussions, or what we want to do in regards with the steering committee.
I think we want to, it's discussions, right? There's no agreements to be entered
Correct,
into
correct.
at this point. It would be communication.
how is that different if we were to have somebody go to the meetings and participate in the meetings? I'm just trying to understand, like, what is this discussion, agreements we've called, now we're calling it discussions, right, to clarify?
Well, right, because there's
How
no
does that-
agreement to enter into.
Right, so how does that look differently than if we were to just participate in these meetings, I guess the public meetings, because apparently there's private meetings or non-public meetings that we're not being involved with, so how, I just want to understand what we're voting on to help me. Maybe everyone else, maybe it's clear, I'm not sure. Does this mean that we get to go to the meetings, which we could go to anyways?
Well, there was a request from the steering committee to us, brought by Joe and Kim, to enter into discussions about, in regards to, what we could potentially, eventually, maybe, either yes or no, enter into kind of contracts. I think, I don't know, but I feel that we probably don't have, I know a lot of people have a lot of questions about numbers and this and that, and I think a lot of people want to be well informed, and I don't think we'll be able to be well informed unless we really work through those. There is the option to have a special subcommittee, you know, I mean, for, sorry, the buzzing is getting to me. I'm really trying to focus.
It ended.
It
We're
stopped
on
again.
cue.
Whenever you call it out, it stops.
Right?
That's interesting.
So I greatly apologize. But is to enter into that, enter into steering committee discussions, but maybe have like the necessary parties work together and work on those numbers. I think it should be a small committee so that way they can meet and kind of move along quickly, because this isn't, we don't have years upon years for this, to be honest. I mean, it could be something that could be a small subcommittee that works on that and then, you know, brings it back to the board.
But a quick question, just a follow-up question though, then how does, say we do that, right? Then how does that subcommittee, with the information you just described, interact with the steering committee? Do they go to the public meeting and share that information with the public at the public meeting? Are they meeting with the steering committee? Because I think initially, what many of us thought when Kim and Joe were put on it, right, was that they were going to be part of this steering committee. Now, at the last meeting I was at, that was clear that that isn't the case. So I think it's a very important question for us to know what we're voting on, as to what exactly, are we saying we're going to have a committee that's then going to go to the public meeting and share information with the committee? Or do they have separate meetings with the steering committee? Just how does that look logistically? I think it's an important question to understand before we vote on this.
What's the temperature of the board? How does the board feel it's the most appropriate way to interact with the steering committee?
Well, wouldn't we just hold a standard committee meeting with the steering committee, and that would just be public anyway?
And I think, you know, if you work it similar to all of the other committees that we have, is you have two groups that are hopefully both working together for the greater good. And work, you know, so maybe just the same as the facilities committee, they're working as a smaller group for the greater good of what is best for our district and what the needs are, because you have a small group that can roll their sleeves up and get stuff done. They can give and take information in order to make sure that everybody is on the same page. And I think we heard loud and clear, that's the biggest struggle right now, is feeling like not everybody is on the same page. From the board to the community to, you know, those that are interact day to day. And so if you're there and you're working through it, that's going to be a little bit different than just sitting in the public meeting during public comment. I would hope that, you know, needs to come from both sides. We can't just want it. Both sides have to want it, and both sides have to honestly want to work together to see what every option is and how that would look.
So I get it, hear that, right? So we have our meeting, our group, our committee, or whatever. But then the question is, how are we going to interact with the steering committee? Because, again, what I feel like we learned at the last meeting was that the two members were basically, I don't know what the right term is, that you were told you weren't a member of the committee. So I'm just trying to understand, like, I get all the points that are being
Maybe it could just be
made.
as simple as something like we're added to their public agenda, and it's a report, and we get to bounce back numbers or questions they've asked us to get the answers to. But maybe, you know, to your point, we make sure that we do that in public session versus non-public.
I don't think we have, it sounds like we're not allowed to be in the non-public sessions of the steering committee. So I think we have to assume it's in the public session, so that's the answer then? So as the subcommittee of the school board, we would go to their public meetings and then report to that steering committee.
I think it's however we want to set it up.
Well, I don't think it is on our side, but not
Yes.
necessarily on the, because again, we thought we were members of the steering committee.
We're
And we were
delegates.
told that
We're
we
delegates
weren't.
to their steering committee.
Okay, so it's on, I'm just saying, it's not how we want to set it up.
Right.
There has to be an agreement from the
No,
steering
it's how
committee.
we want to set it up, because it would be, if we set up a committee, a subcommittee, to look at numbers or things like that, it is our subcommittee, and therefore, we can set it up however we desire and what we wish. What they can either, just like the facilities committee that works on nuts and bolts and brings it back to us to vote on it, then we vote on a whole, and then we go from there. Just like
Can I ask a
every
question?
other committee that
Are
we
we
have.
able to vote at any time to stop negotiations or stop discussions with them if this is not going in a way that we feel that is going to benefit us and it's one-sided?
We can vote to stop discussions with anybody, anytime for any
Okay.
negotiation. Am I correct, Barbara?
Correct.
Okay. Just
Okay.
making sure. So, I mean, how we do this right now is completely on our plates, our terms, our whatever we decide is how, you know,
So I think if we vote in favor of this, that is a stipulation that we feel, the people who are on that committee, have a feeling of mutual cooperation and in good faith in what's going on. And if we feel like it's not going in that, I think this school board should back out immediately and stop discussions, and I think that should be very clear to the steering committee. This is on stipulation of good faith, and if we feel like it's not going in that, I think that should be a stipulation of it.
Should we perhaps send the steering committee something in writing stating that? Saying, you know, we'll have 2 delegates attend a meeting, date to be determined, to discuss whatever it is they're asking of the district. Maybe we can get, I'm not sure.
I was thinking more of setting up, sorry, Melissa's little bubbles and glitter, maybe I didn't explain it well enough, is setting up a committee for the school board that's a working committee just for school board. So say, like Robin, to look at the numbers,
Right,
because.
we meet beforehand and then,
Yeah,
and then
but,
be
but I
delegates
think,
too.
right, and be delegates to the steering committee, but what I'm saying is bringing those numbers, really working as, I forget who just said, working on those nuts and bolts and looking at those numbers and really working those numbers as a team, and then bringing them back to the board, because we don't have time in school board meetings to sit down and be honest and play back and forth with the numbers. There's not enough hours in a meeting to theoretically do that. So I think, that's the point of subcommittees, is to work the nuts and bolts and work those numbers and be able to educate the board with the best information possible, whether it be facilities, whether it be the building committee. That's the whole kind of theory and nuts and bolts, and then bring it back to the board, and then potentially bring it, whether we decide, bring it to the steering committee.
Okay, so we said
Do
we
you,
do work
What I
on
was
our
saying.
end first.
But
Yeah.
does that make, do you understand what I was saying?
Yeah, I mean, I like the
Okay.
idea of the stipulations. I mean, part of one I'd like to make, potentially, at least to throw out there, is like, could we be part of the non-public meetings of the steering committee? I don't understand why, at this point, I guess the sentiment we got the other night was because they might be talking with others, or potentially maybe want to negotiate with others, but if we are in full, we're moving forward, we're discussing, at least having discussions, why couldn't we be part and privy to the non-public meetings of, which I'm not even clear necessarily, and this came up the other night too, as to why they're having these meetings. That's another question, quite frankly, but, just for full transparency, can we be part of those non-public meetings as well?
But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Barbara, if their steering committee is designed by the House Bill 349, and we are not representatives on that committee, we're delegates coming forward from our school board, because they asked us to have a talk with them. We are not members of that committee, we're not voting members, so therefore unless invited, we wouldn't be allowed in non-public, correct?
No, that's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And particularly if they're talking with other districts. Yeah, I mean, I guess if they're going into non-public, they should at least disclose why they're going into non-public. I mean, that's required under the right to know law. But you're right, whether you're operating as, delegates, a subcommittee of the school board reporting information to the steering committee, or you do it, just on an ad hoc basis individually, you would not be allowed to go into non-public with them.
I assume that legally is wise, that would be the reason, but.
do you need two separate votes for this? To do the subcommittee and to vote to
Continue
continue
discussion.
discussions? or-
I think,
one.
in good faith and for transparency, I think we should do two separate votes, yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'd like to move then to create a subcommittee for the school board.
I'll second that. For House Bill 345, 349,
Specifically, Yep.
for House Bill 349 subcommittee, okay? I'll second that. Any discussion?
Just a quick question to make sure I understand, because we did this once. What did we do? How would somebody describe what we did before with Joe and Kim?
They were delegates, they were
Delegates,
voted delegates to go to the meeting.
delegates to go to
They
the
weren't
meeting.
a-
Okay, so
wasn't a
this is different
working-
than this is
This is
now.
more to
This is
get
a-
our information for ourselves and for the Newfound voters to understand what the numbers look like from this side. Am I correct?
That's
Yeah, so
very well
I'm gonna just check my end. So whoever's on this committee will work together with someone, I'm assuming Robin, gets know what we know about facts and figures, and then we'll approach the steering committee.
I think it would have to come back to the school board
School board
first,
and
and
then
then the
approach the
steering committee. Because you can't, because say there's two delegates on the steering committee, they don't have the authority to approve something and bring it to, because it's only two delegates. They can
Gotcha.
approve something or vote on something and bring it to the school board, who then can do a full vote to then proceed forward. But that's how, right, look, I'm getting this down one of these weeks. It's only taken me a couple years. So,
Do we need to vote that we're gonna enter discussion before?
yes, that's what Joe had said, we have to have two separate votes.
Yeah,
So he made this motion first, so we were
Okay.
just discussing this motion first.
okay.
Of having a subcommittee regarding House
Okay,
Bill
subcommittee
349 to
first.
work on the numbers, okay? There's lots of votes. Okay. Any other discussion?
I just think it's important that the purpose of kind of the subcommittee, as I'm seeing it, is we are hopefully going to get clear information, which has been the biggest hurdle thus far from when this started, was bits and pieces, separate meetings. So if we are all, or if we have committee members at the table, hopefully that communication becomes a little bit more clear, a little bit more narrowed down, and not so many, how was it phrased last Monday, hopes, wishes, and hopes and wish and trust, but really hard facts, I think, is what we're all looking to move forward with.
Okay. Anybody else have comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. I nominate for the committee Robin, Kim, and Joe because they're the delegates to the other committee, so I
Second.
think it only makes sense.
Can't do it anyway.
Any discussion regarding that? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Next, your second motion that you're making. You're not a voting member. Good try, Robin. Get those numbers, get that pencil working, Robin. Those Excel spreadsheets, you'll be good.
Sure, I also move to,
Yeah, that's right.
you know, continue talks with the steering committee for Bridgewater, Hebron, and Groton.
Why don't you pass them back?
Yeah, once we have things to talk about.
I'll second that.
I'm not sure if now is the time,
Yeah, I
but
don't-
I think the time about voting is something that really concerns me, of how the vote will take place, and I think that's something that our community should be really aware of how this looks, and what that will actually, how that vote it will happen.
And I think to go along with that, as I understand it, Hebron does not need to hold a separate meeting, so we would have to wait until their town meeting, which is what, May or June, before we know. So Hebron and Groton will have their, Bridgewater and Groton will have their meetings in March, and then we will have to wait until Hebron holds their meeting.
That's correct, because the legislation says their annual meeting.
What if it fails one of the first two towns to meet?
I'm sorry?
Has
What
to
if
be all
it
three.
fails in one of the first two towns to meet?
Well, then.
Hebron doesn't have to vote.
You- Has to be all three.
Other towns, I mean, that'll be up to the town meetings, the moderators, but if any of the towns, if any of the three towns vote it down, that's the end of it.
That's the end of it, okay.
Any further
And it is not a ballot vote, that was.
Well, it depends
made-
on how their towns are set up.
Oh,
Whether
right.
they're SB2 or a regular town meeting.
That's right. Okay.
It's a show of hands, right?
It could be.
It could be.
Somebody could ask.
If it's the traditional town meeting where they do the deliberation and the voting, you know, in one session, then it's however they want to run it. If they want a ballot vote, they can do a ballot vote. But if it's an SB2 town, they'll have the discussion and then they'll have the official ballot voting.
This confusion came up just at the meeting on, when we were there, whenever it was, right? I think for the first time, people were,
I just want,
Thinking it through.
I want our community to be super, super aware of how this vote will be conducted and the integrity behind this vote in terms of who votes and how the vote is done. And I think that's what our community should be really, really aware of in this situation.
I was envisioning it on like your school vote.
Like,
The warrant article.
That's
Right.
what I was
Right.
visioning, like you check in with your ID and you do it just like that. That's how
is that
I think.
important?
It's
mean-
that important. Like I'm absolutely, it scares me that that's how we are conducting this vote.
So back to because I think we got a second right now we're in
Yeah.
And
discussion.
we're having discussion
But I was just
about it.
wondering, could we wait on that vote until we have, seems like
There's a
there's a
discussion, a
step
motion
one
on the
first.
floor. So that has to go to vote first.
Okay.
Before anything else can.
I guess that's my discussion point though, is that we don't even have the group yet hasn't gotten together yet to then,
That's fair.
maybe we could
But
vote
I
on that
think in
after.
good faith, it shows our good faith that we're
Yeah,
willing to
we're moving
continue to
towards
have
it.
discussions.
Yeah.
To discuss upon finding.
That's what I feel.
Facts and figures.
Because I think, to be honest, there's a lot of people very anxious about the kids.
Yes.
And it all really comes back to what's best for the kids. And unless we continue discussions, you know, we might look at the numbers and say, whoa, but until we have that, but I still think in good faith, at this point, we could get the numbers back and we all say, yeah, let's nixay that vote and change our vote. I mean, that's us as a school board. We can sit here and change our entire policy if we wanted to for how we run a meeting. I mean, as a board, we can make a motion and second and vote on whatever policy or change and things within legal limits that we want. We're the governing party of ourselves, so, together, as collectively, as a group, so.
Melissa, what was the motion again that Joe made?
Joe made a motion to continue discussions with the steering committee. I
Thank
forget
you.
who
Was there a
seconded it.
second?
Yes.
Thank you, Dominic.
Yes, Dominic, sorry, I forgot. Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay,
We just
abstentions?
talked.
Okay. All right, any further discussions? Thank you, Barbara. I don't think there's anything else we had.
Not a discussion, but I would like to acknowledge the community that came out last week. I was
Bye, thank you.
grateful for the amount of people that actually took the time to show up on Monday night. I really, and the people that are here tonight, I think it's nice to see people getting involved. I just want to acknowledge that because it's hard to get away from your home. For me at least.
All right, moving on